finally got my diploma, so I now have a diploma in professional styling.
Oh, that's
Just
exciting.
to add to
So
What do
you're
you want to talk
multi-passionate.
I don't know.
Do you want to talk about your mediation? Or
I
do you
think
want
so.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've got my diploma, but I haven't really done anything.
What do
with
you
it.
love? Let's start.
I love
Okay,
everything.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So,
You introduce because you're in the middle.
all right. So, hi everyone. It's Keon and Carly from Strut Your Stuff Entrepreneurs, and today we have
Rebecca Carroll-Bell.
yay. And Rebecca, actually, we've just figured out, is a multi-passionate entrepreneur like us.
Yes.
And-
We've got to say our
yes, I was
environment that we're
just
in.
about to say
Oh.
you can. She
Okay.
hasn't had her chance. So,
So
go.
we're in the park today. It's the first time we'll be able to meet an interviewee in person, which is very exciting. That's all I wanted to say.
And it's because our Skype didn't work, and Rebecca just happened to be around the corner.
So here I am,
Wonderful. So
sitting in the park, soaking up some sun.
Right.
tell us about yourself.
Yeah.
So you have a mediation business.
I do. So I am a nationally accredited mediator, and I bring people together to resolve disputes between themselves, so you don't need the court to tell you what to do. So you make your own decisions as a group, rather than the judge telling you what to do.
So does that mean you don't need a lawyer?
You can have a lawyer, or you can not have a lawyer. It depends on the dispute and the people involved. So
Okay.
I can work with people in the early stage of the dispute when they've just realised there's a problem and they need some help to make some decisions together, or when they've got their lawyers involved before they've filed in court, or after they've filed in court before the trial.
Oh wow.
So what sort of disputes do you normally see come to you?
Yeah, I do a lot of work around wills and estates. So when someone's died
Yep.
and their will either leaves out someone or doesn't leave enough for someone, and there's a challenge to the will.
And they start crying like that.
And they
kid.
start crying, that's right. So very unhappy children. And it's a really rewarding area, because if you're grieving
Yes.
for a loved one and you're caught up in litigation around the will, you actually can't move through the stages of grieving.
No, exactly.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and you get caught in that grief stage for literally years, and it's not good for anyone.
No.
And it feels to me like there's no respect, I guess, to the person that's passed. Like everyone's just worried about the final result of the will.
Yep.
So you're there to help them through that process.
Well, she wouldn't be making any judgments.
I don't
as a
make any
mediator.
judgments. I don't make any decisions. I tend not to give opinions. But
Yep.
what I do is I ask questions that get to the heart of what's really going on.
Oh.
So we'll, on the surface, be arguing over money or over the house. But when you dig a little deeper, you'll find actually it's about, I used to go and visit mum and dad every week, and you all never did, and I did far more for them. And so I feel like I should get more recognition. So often it's those
Really?
family things underneath the surface.
Yeah.
So does that mean, I don't know if this is silly, even if you have a will and you've specified who you want to have the money,
Yep.
you can still dispute it?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Well, can I just make
Yeah.
one? I'm a
Yeah.
lawyer, and we actually act in those areas.
So you know exactly what I'm talking
And
about.
I'm also a mediator too.
Ah.
But the laws actually in Victoria have just recently changed. So the TFM legislation is actually
does that mean?
testator family maintenance. So for people to challenge the wills has actually changed slightly. So,
Yep.
but we won't go into that.
Yeah.
It wasn't legal advice.
It's bringing it more in line with particularly the New South Wales jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I originally trained in New South Wales as a lawyer,
yeah.
and then I moved to Victoria in 2008. So
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, we want to know the backstory.
yeah, so
Yes,
I spent half my career in New South Wales and half here in Victoria. So I grew up in a relatively small country town. It's called Deniliquin.
Yes.
If you've heard of that,
Yes.
yeah, the Denny Ute Muster. Often people associate with the Denny Ute Muster, and what's the word I want? Mascot. The mascot for Denny is a family of rabbits, and Denny's slogan is "Do it in Denny."
Okay.
So whatever it is that you want to do, you do it in
Well,
Denny.
we'll go and interview you there.
I think so.
So what made you move down?
So I went to boarding school in Albury,
Oh.
and then I went to University of Wollongong, University of the Year, 2 years running.
Oh.
Where I did my law degree,
Yep.
and I did a Bachelor of Science majoring in psychology.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
did you always know you wanted to get into mediation and law?
I always knew I wanted to be in the law. I always knew I wanted to help people. I didn't actually know that mediation existed when I was studying. And I'd be interested to see if your experience is similar. My experience is that over the 10 years of my practice as a lawyer, mediation has grown as a profession.
Yes.
When I started, it was sort of very peripheral and the thing that people did as an alternative to the law.
Yeah.
Whereas
Now it's more mandatory as well in a lot of cases. So
So what would be the reason, lawyer, for someone to choose a mediator instead of choosing a lawyer, or to choose both?
Yep.
Or
intelligence.
Well, as a mediator, I don't give advice.
Yep.
I ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
And I challenge people's perceptions, and I do a lot of reality testing.
Okay.
But what I don't do is give you advice.
Yeah.
The 3 reasons why you would choose a mediator is because we save money. It's cheaper to have a mediation than it is to go to a trial.
Okay.
In the tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Wow.
We save you time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have been trying to get a trial date lately in the county court right now. So today is the 29th of October?
Yes. No, 30th.
30th.
30th of October. The next available trial date in the County Court of Victoria is in March 2015 for a judge only.
Wow.
And if you want a jury, it's September 2015.
Wow.
Whereas you can be in mediation before Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the third thing that we save you is stress, because it's much nicer to come and have a chat to me in a room than it is to go to court, be sworn in, have to give evidence and be cross-examined by the other person's lawyer or barrister.
And they've got control over the outcome.
That's right, and you control the outcome.
Yeah.
So if you go to trial, you spend all this time and money and stress. You wait until March. You go. You might spend a day in court. You might then wait another 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks to get a decision, and the judge tells you what to do.
Oh, got a loud motorbike.
Got a Harley store around the corner. Go boys!
It's such a beautiful day though. Why wouldn't you be out on the bike?
Well,
So
and then the other thing about mediation. Sorry, I am so very. I love it. I just love it. The other thing, and again, you guys can probably relate to this, is that when you go to mediation, because you are shaping the outcome, you actually can make a legally binding agreement to have things happen that a judge doesn't have the power to order.
Yep.
So, for example, say we're not talking about a deceased person, say we're talking about someone who's still alive, and they want to give away some of their assets to one child and not the other, and the other grown-up child while they're alive.
Okay.
Anyway, and it turns out that the reason that they want the daughter to have something and not the son is because the son never comes to visit and never brings the grandchildren over.
Okay.
So a court's not going to order, well, you should bring the grandchildren over. But if you get the family together around a table in mediation, and the parent gets the chance to express, I never get to see my grandchildren, I don't feel like you're part of my family anymore, then they can actually go, well, what if we come once a month? What if we come every school holidays? What if we Skype with you once a week on a Sunday night? So you actually can address the real issues and come up with solutions that suit your problem, but that are not necessarily what you're going to get if you go to court. Because the judge is really, really limited to what he or she can order.
Yes.
So,
Oh, it seems very rewarding.
We could talk about this to the
we could talk
counter.
hours.
But I think what's really made me sort of go woo is that I've just discovered within a few seconds before we started this, I actually didn't know you were a lawyer, but that's made me even more excited because I actually hate the law. Sorry.
I love the law.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I love that there are laws. But I really don't like practicing law because I feel like people are coming to me because they have to come to me. I want people to come to me because they want to come to me. So it's an unfortunate time, and I mainly deal with family and criminal law, so there's a lot of emotions.
A lot of distress.
But let's go on to your fashion.
This is exciting.
Not only a mediator.
So when I was working my last full-time job before I started my own practice, like yourself, I was very dissatisfied with what I was doing. So I loved the law, but I wasn't loving being a lawyer anymore.
It's stressful.
It's stressful. And where I was working, they were downsizing, there were budget cuts, do more with less, etc., etc. And it was just really, I wasn't happy. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. So I started studying fashion styling with the Australian College of Professional Styling, I think they're called. It's an online self-paced course, and they say it should take you 6 months. 22 months later, I'm proud to say that I have a diploma in professional styling.
Oh my God. Well, you know what? Well, I'm so excited in the future to interview you about how we should be styled.
Yeah.
Because that's part of entrepreneurs. It's about giving that professional aspect and showing your personality through your clothes. And
there's so much that you say without opening your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's one thing that we. I know this is awful, but we go onto websites and I say to Carly, oh, she looks like a bitch. Like, I'm sorry, and
she does.
And then we speak to this person. We're like, oh my God,
She
I
was
love
amazing.
her. Like the most beautiful person I've ever spoken to, and you're like, that's such a shame because I know I'm not the only one that will look at your photo, not yours.
My photos are from Carly
Carly.
Elizabeth. They're beautiful.
I'm generalising some people's photos, and I say this about my own photos before Carly did them on my other business. That I was like, so I wasn't attracting people at all because of the way I was looking. So that's a really, really important part of getting good photos, dressing nicely, or
and dressing for the person that you're speaking to as well.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to an event in Denny, I'm going to dress differently than if I'm going to an event in the middle of Melbourne. I'm not necessarily going to wear my designer suit because I'm just going to look like a city wanker. So I'm going to wear something that's a little bit more country and a little bit more relaxed.
But is that your personalities too? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. But also I want to be approachable.
Yes.
And you want people to be able to feel like they can talk to you and you have to
relate to you.
And relate to you.
I think that's what was really interesting about your photos because you kind of combine the two, your passion for mediation, and then you had these brilliant jackets and clothes and colourful necklaces. So that kind of brought your personality as well through your clothes.
Yeah.
So that's why it's just so inviting. And like, you wouldn't think you think you classify people as like, oh, lawyers, they're going to be boring, uptight people. But look at these two.
Actually, lawyers are a lot of lawyers are comedians.
Yeah.
Great sense of humour.
It's one of those funny things
and they're alcoholics too.
Yeah, I know. As lawyers and in business, I find that we're often quite conservative and risk averse. I know I certainly am when I'm in my legal frame of mind. But then when they cut loose, they really cut loose. Yeah. So it's just one of those strange things. Yeah.
I just want to go back to the conversation about dressing the part and stuff like that. It's, I suppose, in one sense, that's what we have to do as business people, and then in another sense, though, do we have to do that and hide who we are? Because there's some people out there that they are so unique and individual looking, and they've got whatever differences, and they really embrace those differences and they attract all kinds of people. So are we being too cautious?
I think that as with any element of your marketing, you have to meet your client where they are. So if your clients are going to be the kind of people who are attracted to very eclectic dressing and purple hair and red glasses, then go for it. If your clientele are more conservative and they're going to look at that and say, this person's a bit of a clown and we don't trust them, and it all comes back to trust, then you need to either change the way that you present yourself or change your definition of your ideal client. Or,
just to throw the spanner in the works, is to get them to trust you. So, and by doing that, there's many ways via
all sorts
video.
of things. So I think that you should always be true to yourself. I think that...
Can you just hang on a second? I'm going to ask you a question because we've pretty much asked a lot of questions. Are we down to the end now? Did we ask the magical question?
Yeah.
So the magical question is, what advice would you give to your 15-year-old you?
Oh my gosh, that's such a difficult question.
It's not.
No, it really is, because I am nothing like her.
Well, what would you say to her?
Yeah, what would you say to say, you know, your life is going to be so much different, or this is how to make your life who you are today?
Yeah.
Trust yourself.
It's been a big one, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Just trust yourself.
Trust yourself.
Yeah.
Don't listen to those adults. They're wrong. They're wrong. Just trust your gut.
I've got kids.
No, but seriously, trust your gut. I had people, I made some decisions. So the reason I ended up at Wollongong University was I wanted to study law.
Yep.
And my marks at HSC were not high enough to get me into most of the law schools around the country. I was actually accepted to Armidale, to UNE, and then I found out that it snows in winter in Armidale. And I had family in Wollongong. My uncle and aunt and cousins all lived in Wollongong, and it was on the beach.
Yeah.
So I decided to change my preferences to apply to do arts at Wollongong University, which I was accepted to do. Worked my backside off for a year, and I then transferred into a combined Bachelor of Law, Bachelor of Science, majoring in psychology. So my parents thought that was a huge mistake, and my dad was convinced I was never going to get into law. I was going to end up with an arts degree, and then who knows what I was going to do with that arts degree. I really enjoyed that year. I figured out what I didn't want to do, so I knew I didn't want to do the other arts subjects anymore. I just wanted to do psychology, so I moved into science psychology.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to do the arts subjects. I did some acting courses in that first
I
semester.
can imagine that.
I did some music courses in that first year. I had a great time.
Wow.
And I worked hard, and I got into law. So it took me an extra year to finish my law degree. And at the time, I was being told that I'd made a mistake, and that I should have gone to UNE, and I should have done this law degree first up. So
We don't like Struts, and you know our stories are very similar.
yeah.
So I was a very naughty girl when I was younger, so my marks were not very good. And I decided after my first marriage breakdown that I'd go down to Tassie. Well, not go down to Tassie. I wanted to study law.
Yep.
But because my marks were quite poor.
Yep.
And not that I'm saying Tassie is not a good uni. Princess Mary of, is it Denmark?
Yes.
She went to that university, thank you very much, and she studied the same law degree.
Did she? Really?
She did,
Wow.
but not in my year. And but that's something we can brag about. And it's a very, very, very fantastic law school, I just have to say. But yeah, so I did the same as you, and I don't know why I'm going on to this topic.
I think it's
Mary's
because
fault.
No, I think it's because, and again, it's the shoulds. So often, and I think especially as women, and I could just be wrong about that, but I think especially as women, we are expected to follow a particular path. And until you're there, you don't necessarily realise that there's many paths to the same destination.
Yeah.
So don't be disheartened if the path that you think you want to be on, if there's obstacles, you find a way around.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's from my law degree, the biggest thing that I learnt was nothing gets in the way of your success but you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Exactly.
That was worth more to
Yeah.
me than the actual degree.
Yeah.
And I want to ask a question.
Sorry.
So, how did you actually become or start your full-time business? 'Cause I think that's a lot of advice people want to know.
That was really interesting. So I'd known for a long time I wanted to become an accredited mediator.
Yeah.
I happened to be working in the government sector at the time, so it wasn't something that I could combine with my legal practice. I came to my 10-year anniversary of being a lawyer. I have to go back a year. A year before that, in the May of 2012, my uncle, who had been living in Wollongong, with whom I was very close, died at the age of 65 from cancer. He'd been fighting cancer for a long time. And I was 35 at that stage. And I suddenly thought to myself, if I've only got 30 years left on this planet, I'm not going to spend them doing this. So that was in the May of 2012. By the end of 2012, I had realised that I couldn't continue as an employee solicitor in the government sector, and that I didn't want to go back to private firms either. So I told hubby, I'm quitting my job. It's all down to you now.
There you go.
And so I quit my job, and then I took my gap year. Because I'd gone straight from, because I'd gone from high school to uni, worked hard at uni to transfer into the degree, so I took 7 years to do a 6-year degree. I worked full-time for the last year and a half of my degree. I then went straight from there to working full-time as a lawyer. I then moved to Melbourne and was unemployed for 3 months before finding another full-time job. So again, at the age of 35, it was like, you know what, I need a gap year. So I took some time off. I did some teaching at Victoria Uni. A friend of mine's a lecturer there and she needed tutors, so I did some teaching. I finished my diploma that I'd been working on for a very long time. I got a job in a dress shop for a few months. What else did I do? I can't even remember. Yeah, got my accreditation as a mediator. Met Carly, got my beautiful photos taken, set up my website, did all of that. And so then in February of 2014, I launched RCB Mediation Services.
Wow.
And I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
That's what I wanted to ask you. What do you love? What do you love about your job?
I love lots of things about it. I love being my own boss. I'm not a morning person, so I love that I can start work at 10 and work through till 7, because that suits me. But I love that I'm finally actually helping people.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, people bring their problems and give them to you and say, call me when you've sorted it out. And you're constantly asking them for more money, more information, more this, more that. As a mediator, everybody sits together and you go, right, what are we together going to do about this? And it's so powerful. And as we were saying, the parties to the dispute, the people in the dispute actually are making their own decisions. They're in charge of their own destiny. And you see the weight of the world lift off their shoulders. You literally see the weight of the world lift off their shoulders. And you just don't get that in any other job.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so how can people reach you? How can we find you?
rcbmediationservices.com.au, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Google+.
Hey.
And
Wow.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Google me.
Yeah, we will. We Google everything.
Yeah. No, it's been amazing.
And because I'm Carroll-Bell, it's only me and my hubby, we're the only ones. So if you Google Carroll-Bell, you'll probably find us.
Okay. Well, we'll also put a little
Thank you.
Little linky
down the bottom.
Thank you. Yep.
Linky link.
Wow. Well, that was really fun.
I know.
We should,
All right. Yes.
And remember to strut your stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.